All right, so hey everybody, this is the second of two videos kind of rounding out a couple of details and some examples on topic 1.5 with the new monarchies. This one's going to focus on Central Europe, and as you're going to hear me say multiple times in here, these are not new monarchies. This is a sign of the old Europe that is about to fall behind the times. Okay, so I'm kind of skipping over the whole idea where I'm going to tell you the characteristics of the new monarchy because, again, this is not a new monarchy. The Holy Roman Empire goes back centuries, and we talk about the idea of them trying to, like these monarchs, trying to centralize and control power. This map from 1444, this, inside this kind of like green line here, this is the Holy Roman Empire. Some parts of it, like Bohemia and Austria, are a little bit bigger. Savoy's a little bit bigger. But look, all of this stuff is kind of carved up and really not much is anything going on there. All in all, around 1450, there are about 300 semi-autonomous German states. Autonomous means you have control of yourself. These German states have kind of control of themselves, but kind of not. The kind of not is because they are part of the Holy Roman Empire, which means there is an emperor that is over them. So, well, the emperor, like where we are just kind of jumping in for this time period, the time of Christopher Columbus, is Maximilian the First. I don't really have much to tell you about a Holy Roman Emperor because he's not that great of an emperor. It's like, if I'm being honest with you, the whole system is kind of messed up. He is a emperor over this whole area, but he is actually elected by the nobles that are representing these little territories. The bigger of the little, it's not all 300 of them, but it is some of the bigger ones like Bohemia and Austria, and Savoy is in there, and Burgundy's even in there, like kind of early on in this, before the 1490s. So Maximilian is really the emperor over like these people that are really in charge of themselves. And because of this kind of like difficulty that's going on, this kind of just breeds chaos. And so they are caught in the middle of what the textbook refers to as the Habsburg Valois Wars. Valois, that is the French monarchy, like Francis the First that we talked about in the other video. And the Habsburgs, that is like the Austrian family that Maximilian is part of, but because of like the marriages that are going on between some of these families, the Habsburgs are also going to be the head of the Spanish monarchy by the time you get into the 16th century. Ferdinand and Isabella, they're not Habsburgs, but their grandson, King Charles V, well, I didn't say it right. That is Emperor Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. He is a Habsburg because his family married into the royal family in Spain. And so in 1519, he ascends to the throne as Emperor Charles V because he is the fifth emperor of the empire to be named Charles, but at the same time, he is the first Spanish king to be named Charles, and so he is both Charles the First and Charles the Fifth, which I know is super confusing, but monarchies are kind of stupid. I don't know what to tell you. Charles is going to be huge for us in terms of like the global empire with Spain, in terms of what he's going to do during the Reformation, in terms of making Spain a rich and powerful place. But as King of Spain, he is going to oversee the New World expansion. And then as King of Spain, as a good Catholic, he is going to oppose the Protestant Reformation. Hashtag Unit 2. But over here in the Holy Roman Empire, it's really kind of an afterthought for him because Spain and the overseas colonies are just that important. So I think the big takeaway I want you to get from this is the Holy Roman Empire is, well, kind of a hot mess. And it's not going to get any better because those new monarchies on the West Coast are just going to keep getting richer and stronger. And, well, the HRE is just going to flounder and eventually fail. We also need to revisit Italy and the Italian city-states because this is kind of where the whole thing in the unit started off, and I want to make sure everybody understands like why did the Renaissance really end in Italy? So here is this story. Okay, step one is even when we were looking at this back at the beginning of the unit, there's economic competition between those different city-states, and so they're not able to unify the same way that England, France, Spain are going to be able to unify. And so this money and this competition is ultimately going to be the downfall of what's going to happen in Italy. Second reason the Italian city-states are going to fall is King Charles VIII of France. He is going to invade Naples. Remember we talked about this? When he invades Naples in southern Italy, he's actually encouraged to do so by Ludovico Sforza. He is one of the ruling families in Milan. And so this is like one Italian city-state kind of selling out another Italian city-state. This whole invasion of Italy, this is part of what we were talking about just a minute ago, the Habsburg-Valois Wars, the wars between Spain and France. So if this seems kind of odd because it's war between Spain and France, but they're fighting in Italy, it's a little bit odd. It is also why this is bad news for Italy because this is going to get pretty rough, and it gets really rough over in Florence in the heart of all this, uh, because they're trying to keep the French army from coming in. They try to appease King Charles, but ultimately this leads to the overthrow of the Medicis, and they are thrown out of town of the city for like a few years. And in the meantime, that's when Girolamo Savonarola, that's when he starts the bonfire of the vanities, because as a really devout religious individual, he kind of saw like some of the questionable morality, the greed he saw during the Renaissance. He saw that as being kind of, this is like God's retribution for all that greed, is all the pain and the suffering and the context of what's going on with this invasion, not just of Florence, but of the rest of the Italian peninsula. This kind of chaos is the context for Machiavelli when he writes The Prince, when he's trying to give advice about how to be a good ruler. He feels like he needs to give somebody advice to be a good ruler because Italy is hurting for a good ruler at this point, but it's not going to come anytime soon. By the 1520s, Charles V or Charles I is like Spanish Habsburg, Holy Roman Emperor. They move in and they conquer Rome and they kind of take things over, which kind of, for most historians, they say that is for sure the end of the Italian Renaissance, because there's nothing that really kind of resembles Italian unity for a long, long time. And as a matter of fact, I think we're going to be done talking about Italy for a while. The next time Italy's going to come up for us, a little bit with Rome and the church, but so far as Italy as a unified anything, we'll come back to it in like January or February because we're going to have to go a solid 300 years to get this far. So the point on this is really like both for Italy and for the Holy Roman Empire, they're just falling behind the times and they are being dominated by the Spanish and the French, and to a certain point by the English too. But we'll have to see how this keeps on developing in politics in Europe when we get back into Unit 2 just right around the corner. So thanks.